This woman asks or states, "Hi Mukti, thank you for your open heart and graceful presence. You have nurtured my soul on numerous occasions, and I am so very grateful. I have a question about body practices. I know you like to bring Qigong into your offerings, and I assume you do this within your own practice with regularity. I am familiar with other teachers that also invite students to engage in body in slash embodiment practices to support grounding in body and really feel our intimate connection to body. I also notice that Adya does not seem to focus on such embodiment practices. That said, when he invites us to descend from the head into the heart and lower belly, this I can feel is inviting us into the body. But still, it is comparably minimal to other teachers. I was wondering if you might comment on your experience with the practice of being in one's body, how you feel it plays a role in your practice, and maybe why Adya does not, at least publicly, devote too much time to such embodiment practices." So I wanted to say that this question at some level was an inspiration for me to talk about embracing our uniqueness, because we're each organized internally, and we're just very different in how we're organized, and how we express, and our makeup and our unique sense of spirit being embodied through us. And Adya has always been a much more physical person. You know, he's very athletic, very much in his body from the youngest age. I mean, there's some amazingly wonderful pictures. His dad was the family photographer, but he was very interested in photography. He had his own darkroom and things like that, and loved taking photographs. And there's so many pictures of action shots of Adya, like jumping off of dunes, or popping wheelies on his bike, or climbing when he was a little older, doing rock climbing, being in bike races. He's a very physical person. And even from a very young age, one of my favorite photos I just want to mention that you might find cute is that his dad had built one of these swing sets in their, or play structure sets in their backyard, but mostly it was the swing part with the V supports on either side of the bar that supported the swing. And Adya's very young, like maybe 4 years old, and he's already climbed up to the top bar with his bare feet. And he would climb onto the roof and, walk along the fences, tops, to all through the neighborhood. And his mom said sometimes she just had to shut the curtains because she just couldn't keep watching all of this, and couldn't get a hold of him quickly enough to prevent it. And she also saw that he was very coordinated. So he is so physical in form that I think it comes second nature for him to be very, very embodied. And that's not so true of me. For those of you who know about Ayurvedic medicine, I'm often typed as like a double vata, which is more like double air. And so for me, it helps me to do specific exercises and practices to feel more embodied, and to put my attention into my body. And in doing so, my sense is that energy follows attention. Attention often follows energy as well, but energy follows attention. So when we bring attention into our form, and are very aware of how we're moving our form, it also brings a lot of energy into our form. And so it can be super helpful for people who are more cerebral or more vata, or less just used to being very in their physical form, to do these practices. And at another level, it can help us have a relationship with our bodies and having a kind of dialogue. And not only our physical bodies, but our emotional bodies. And it can help us create that kind of dialogue and languaging where we begin to understand the body. And I'll talk about that a little bit more with respect to someone's question who wrote in and was asking about a sense of clench in the hara area down in the gut, just below the navel, in the center of the body, in front of the spine. And there can be these tendencies for energy to really gather in and pull in. And sometimes that's in more like collecting a sense of, inner power, like, whoa, like they do in the martial arts. There's a lot of energy gathered into the hara. And sometimes that gathered energy can also feel more grasping in a way that might feel like more of a grip that perhaps gives a person impressions that there might be a grip related to physical survival or things like that. But the point is that there's a way that energy and attention are very linked, and we could say they link very much so in consciousness. And so sometimes we can have certain emotions that have a consciousness of let's just say, joy or peace or anger or fear, sadness. And there's a way that energy gathers and imprints us with almost like directional feelings, like sometimes anger feels like it's rising or building, or depression feels like it's turning inward, or maybe irritability also might feel like it's pushing away. So there's a lot of ways that we can begin to understand the messages of the body. And when the body is asking for attention, for us to turn our attention inward because of the direction of that imprint. And sometimes it matches. Like sometimes we may feel an energy like low down in the hara, and it almost feels as though our attention is being asked to go down. And sometimes it's to look outward, and we can respond in different ways. So I think I'm getting a little too sidetracked for the moment. But sometimes we give our attention in a way that follows that energy, or sometimes complements it. Like if something's very shaky, maybe we give it the attention of great stillness and calm, and it soothes that, as an example of like an opposing approach. But the point is that when we give attention to the body, we become conscious of what's in play on emotional levels, on levels of belief, and when we hold certain beliefs, how our body responds, on the level of the physical. So there is a way that the body can be an instrument to help us and inform us. But some people really aren't of that makeup. I'm very kinesthetic. I'm very visual, and there are certain ways that I, internally see things or map things or navigate things. Adya's a really different kind of person, and not that all of this is all about Adya and I by any chance, but I just wanted to respond to the person who wrote in. He's not only very physical, but a lot of what he speaks to, especially when he's teaching, it comes more from above. Like he described once that when he's talking, he is in his teaching mode. He feels as though what he wants to say is moving down sometimes from his crown chakra, from above his crown chakra into his crown, and then just straight out his mouth. Just some sense of the words that come to him as though they're downloaded, and they just come straight out. And for me, it sometimes feels that I feel a lot of the audience and what's happening for them. Not every single person necessarily, but I'll get these dominant notes. It's a little bit different when I'm in the room with people physically and when I'm online. But something in me feels like it picks up on what's in the field of community gathering, what's in the field of the Sangha and the people tuning in. And it's as though something inside me is digesting that and then speaking to it. So Adya and I are really different hookups. And as you notice, mine is very body-based and very kinesthetic. And so that's where I'm comfortable, and that's what I often speak to and give pointers in describing things, especially in greater detail. So just for fun, I'll share that the other day, Adya and I were talking, and we were talking about how I experience him a lot like a bird. And we were actually watching or he had been watching a raptor that lives not too far from us or spends time flying around. And Adya has this great capacity to see a big picture of things and then clearly kind of distill that his impression of what he sees in this larger picture, whether it's what's happening for an individual or for a community, for society. But there's ways that he'll name things with a kind of a quickness often. And I was saying that, I feel more like I'm the earthworm or the worm in the earth that's like digesting, spending time like digesting this, digesting that. And once I internalize something and I understand it much more intimately from the inside, it's though something inside me just is in the mode of like, I got it. Like I really grok that, and I can speak to that with confidence. And but it's a different thing. But I also pick up on a lot of what's happening with people and relationships, and more of the minutia in the fine sand of things, and I'm more detailed, whereas Adya's much more big picture, and he feels sometimes that I might, he might defer to me when it comes to some of the human relating particulars that I pick up on, that he's maybe sensing at some level, but isn't quite as clear about. So we each have our strengths and our makeups, and we also tend to speak from our strengths. And so I will speak more about feelings and how they register in the body, and really using the body as an instrument to give us feedback and to help us liberate certain memories, patterns, beliefs, emotions. And I think Adya is really, much more about, the big picture of awakening. And I do teach a lot about awakening as well, but when the questions come in, it tends to be sometimes more specific. So I do think it's smart for you to try different things and see what works, and to understand better what practices like qigong or yoga or gosh, there's so many different things, body work or weightlifting or physical exercises, to see what helps you feel more integrated as a human being, what makes you feel more capable in relating well and thriving in your own health and well-being on all kinds of levels: emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual. And so I think it's really wonderful to experiment and to see what supports you and what you think you need.